So today we're going to talk just a little bit about comparing decimals. You do have a couple lessons like this in PLP. It's very similar to comparing whole numbers. So if we were to compare 23 and 74, when we say compare, we just mean how is 23? Is it the same? Is it bigger than, or is it less than 74? So when we look at this, we know 74 is our bigger number. If I were to give you the numbers 23, 74, and 92, and I said I want you to put those in order from least to greatest. 23 is my smallest number, so I'm going from least to greatest, so I know it's going to be 23. The next smallest number is 74. The next smallest number is 92. So least to greatest means you put them in order from the smallest to the largest. So greatest to least, you're going from the largest to the smallest. When we do decimals, it's very similar. So I'm going to use different colors to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And if we compare, if I give you the number 6 and 3/10, and we are comparing that to 5 and 7/100. Well, it can look a little confusing at first, but what we know about decimals, and especially these that we're looking at, is a decimal is a part of a whole, but here I have whole numbers. So if I have whole numbers, that's where I'm going to start. Well, what do I know about 6? I know 6 is always bigger than 5. So if I always have more whole numbers, if 6, no matter what decimal comes behind my 5, 6 is always bigger. So 6 and 3/10 will always be bigger than 5 and 7/100 because our whole numbers are bigger. But then what if I look at some numbers where our whole numbers are the same? What if I have 7 and 42/100, and I want to compare that to 7 and 53/100. So I'm always going to check my whole numbers first. So my whole number 7, my whole number 7. Well, they're the same, so that doesn't really help me out. So I'm even going to cross these out. My 7s aren't going to be of any help to me because they're the same. So then I go to my next largest place value, my tenths. I have 4/10 here, and I have 5/10 here. What's bigger, 4 or 5? I know that my 5 is. So I know my alligator is going to point this direction. You've probably heard about the alligators when you've compared numbers before in previous grades. He wants to eat this number because it's the bigger number. But what if there isn't a whole number? What if the numbers that I'm comparing, there's not a whole number? What if I'm comparing 72/100 compared to 73/100? So here's where it gets a little trickier. You can't see that 73/100, it's very faint. Try and rewrite that. So I know my whole number's the same. My whole number's 0. So that's not going to do me any good. So I can get rid of that. Then I look at my next biggest number, my tenths. Well, they're both 7s. So if they're the same, that's not going to help me out either. So I need to get rid of that. Then I look at my hundredths. I have 2/100 or 3/100. What's bigger, 2 or 3? We know the 3 is bigger. So that is going to be my larger decimal. When people start getting confused, I have noticed, is when we start trying to compare tenths to hundredths. So if I have 7/10 and 7/100. A lot of people want to say that they're equal. But are they? I look at my whole. My whole's the same, so it doesn't help me. Then I look at my tenths. Well, this one has 7/10. This one has 0/10. Well, I know 7 is bigger than 0. So 7/10 has to be bigger than 7/100. When you start getting big, long lists of decimals, so if I give you 6 and 43/100, and then I give you 5 and 22/100, I give you 74/100. So I have 6 and 43/100, 5 and 22/100, and 74/100. And I want to put them in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to look up here. I know that I have a number that has 6 holes, a number that has 5 holes, and a number that has 0 holes. So which one of those is going to be the smallest? The one that doesn't have any whole numbers. And once I write that down, I'm going to get rid of that number so I don't even have to look at it anymore. So now, the next smallest number. I've got 6 holes, and I've got 5 holes. Well, I know 5 is my smallest number. So 5 and 22/100 is the smallest. So I can get rid of that. I'm going to add in another one. What if 6 and 4/100 is also added in? So now I'm looking for the smallest one. I've got 6 and 4/100, 6 and 43/100. Well, they both have 6 as their whole number, so that doesn't help me. So then I need to look at their 10th. Which one of these is the smaller one? It would be this one. So that's my next smallest number, which means 6 and 43/100 is the greatest out of that list of numbers. If it were to ask you to go from greatest to least, you would do the same thing, just in backwards order. You would look for your biggest number, then your next biggest, then your next biggest, all the way until you get to the smallest.